Hello, Mortal Kombat fans!
Mortal Kombat fans!
And all of you from our past that have reached out recently to tell us all the love and hello to you too!
Hey!
Because we never really know who's consistently watching this, and we've run into and talked to a couple people from our past, and so thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
My name is Nathan.
And I am Zach.
We are siblings, and this is the Mortal Kombat podcast where we discuss our history, our current situation, and the future of our religious... Wait, take the future out. Religious trauma.
Religious trauma, baby.
Because as we talk about it here on this podcast, we heal, we grow, and we move the fuck on.
Yeah.
They say that if you say the F word in the first 10 minutes of your YouTube video, they suppress it.
Fuck,
Who
fuck, 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 fuck,
fucking
fuck, fuck,
cares? Anyways, welcome.
Welcome.
How are you doing, bud?
I'm doing okay. Hanging in there.
It's raining outside. It's been raining all day. It's quite beautiful.
I loved it. Yeah.
It's humid here.
Feels healing.
It is healing. How have you been lately? How has your week been?
I've been good, man. I'm, as some people know, I've been on disability trying to let my back heal. And I'm going through waves where I'm like, it's getting better. And then it's just really bad. And like this past week, maybe like a week and a half, it's been like the worst it's ever been in a long time. And so it's been a little destructive. Do you hear that crackle?
Yeah, it's because you're touching your mic.
You think so?
I think so.
I don't know. I don't know if anyone, any people who actually watch the podcast, you'll see that we have a new table in front of us. And so we had to rewire everything. So
I don't think, I would imagine not many people care at all. But for us, it's a big deal because we remodeled it, painted it, waxed it.
Yeah.
And it's big and it's green. Yay!
And then we took the other two tables and we put them to the right here. And so now we have this little like cave. It's awesome.
It's just, we're just building the studio out to start having interviews in here. So at some point you're going to be able to see a lot more of this production studio. Yeah, Zach, you know, your back's been hurting a lot. And it seems like sometimes the pain absorbs all of the stress, right? It's like pinpoints all of the stress in your life. So you have all these other, life is just difficult at times. It's fun. It's exciting. You're thriving. But then when the back pain becomes like the focus, it's like, well, here we are again. It's like repetitive trauma.
Yeah. And it's not just like back soreness. That's really what makes it stressful. Is it legit feels like the bottom end of my spine is being like pinched, which it is technically, but like it just doesn't feel like your back's sore. It feels like something is super, super wrong. And then all the doctors are like, you're going to have to learn how to live with it. And it's like, I don't know if I can live with this pain, but
I don't know. I think it's a good connection to this podcast that it's like sometimes you got to live with the pain. Just get your shit together, Zach. Just live with the pain.
Okay.
Go on, Zorn.
Okay.
Just kidding.
No,
just
thanks,
kidding. I'm just
thanks,
kidding. I'm just
thanks.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
You and all the other doctors.
I'm a nurse. And as a nurse, I like to help patients feel heard. But with my family, get your shit together.
Right.
Like
that
grow
makes
up.
sense. That makes sense.
Grow up.
That makes sense.
Take deep breaths and move on.
Nice.
Meditate.
Yeah.
Maybe focus your energy around healing the back. Okay.
Totally. Manifest.
I have something I want to say to, and these do not affect me.
Right.
But I've noticed how on a lot of our shorts, through different platforms, there seems to be this huge evangelical online Christian group and culture. And most of the comments we get on some of our videos are just from you evangelical Christians that are like just trying to like preach the gospel at us or telling us certain things that we obviously are aware of. Like an example would be, well, that's why the Holy Spirit's there, because the Holy Spirit loves you and wants to work through you. Comment. And in our video, we're like, the church hurt my soul.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I want you, if you're watching this, you should know that your seeds are falling on hard ground. They're never going to grow. Okay. No. There's a verse in the Bible that says that.
Yeah.
Say you're just throwing seeds and they literally just bounce. It's like ricochet.
Yeah.
There's a seed.
Mustard. They use mustard seed as the example too.
Oh, wasn't that like faith as strong as a mustard seed? You can move mountains.
Yeah.
What a joke.
Yeah.
I can't move a mountain with the faith of a mustard seed.
Mustard seed? Mustard seed don't work for me.
That's just what I'm saying. I think it's hilarious that every time one of those comments comes through, it's just proving our point.
Yeah.
That it's like, we're going to completely disregard these two discussing trauma and healing, and we're just going to keep piling on that guilt.
Yeah. A really funny short that we posted, I think it was either today or yesterday. It was us jokingly saying, right before you die, give your life to Christ. And then just in case it's real, you'll be safe, Like the obvious, I remember our father as the pastor would preach that as the joke of the sermon. Like no one actually, if you're going to follow the faith, could do that because you're not really following the faith and it's not going to work. And we say it as a joke, and we're obviously totally messing around.
What was
and
the joke again? Saying what?
That if you, right before you die, just pray and give your life to Christ, and just in case, it's still what do you have to lose?
It's called a joke.
Yeah. And so many of these evangelical Christians are like, that doesn't work actually in the Bible. If you're not a true Christian, it's
I think one of the comments on it was like, if you, that's the whole idea, is that you don't know when you're going to die.
You think? Yeah. No shit, Sherlock.
That's the joke.
Oh man, these lovely people. Thanks for commenting.
But we know having a voice around our trauma we know having a voice around our trauma connected with the evangelical Christian church, it just pisses Christians off.
Yeah.
It's like just talking about it pisses Christians off.
Dude, I mean,
it makes them so upset.
And I understand. I used to be a Christian, pretty deep into it when I was a child.
I understand so much less now. I'm like, well, chill out.
Well, I mean, when you're lost in the cult, man.
Just pass the video.
Anyone that's talking
bad, you see the
bad,
short, just keep scrolling.
Anyone that's talking bad about your cult, it can be pretty triggering.
Yeah, it's true.
They're
angering.
I decided to trigger myself last night.
Okay.
And
tell me about it.
Yeah, I was like, I just wanted to see if I could recognize anybody. And so I went to a very popular church's Instagram in town here. And I was like, I wonder who's there. Couldn't recognize anybody.
So I
decided to scroll in and look at faces, and I'm like, and I was, what are they doing?
Oh my God, dude, you're like death scrolling.
Yeah. Hurt me. It's traumatizing.
It's our new segment. So does it trigger?
Triggers.
And it's just us on churches' Instagrams. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, triggered.
And he's triggered.
That
was 10.5 seconds. That was a new record.
New record. Must be a pretty
and
triggering
he left
church.
The studio. That's it, folks. Yeah, don't do that, Zach.
Okay.
There's no reason for that.
Yeah.
Just go to the Moral Combat Instagram and remember how lame Instagram first is.
Yeah, 100%.
And then move on.
Move on.
And then just move on.
Just move right along.
Well, there you have it. Let's jump in to this
we have a fun topic tonight.
We've been the last few podcasts just trying to be a little bit more specific about what we're talking about, which has actually made it more difficult coming into the podcast for me, because over the last 6 months, we've had weeks where we aren't very specific about what we're doing on this cast. We'll talk pop culture. We'll talk about recent things in the news, or we've sat down and just been like, we don't want to do this tonight, so we're just going to talk. And for us, that's fun, but we recognize that delivering this message that we really believe in, and also the benefit that we get from healing, having this conversation together and then sharing it with y'all and editing it, means to have more structure and to actually plan ahead. To, we've talked about so much of our trauma already. And obviously we can feel that there are the algorithms working in our favor a little bit more and reaching actually some of you that are really connected to our past childhood experiences and were in the church with us. And I said that in the beginning of this, you've reached out. And so here we are. We're just going to keep going in every week and being a little more specific and trying to, some of these things we've talked about before, maybe a couple of podcasts. And so whether we repeat things or not, every time we talk about these topics, there's just so much more that comes out of it.
Yeah.
Last week, we talked about guilt. Mm-hmm. The week before that, we talked about rituals. Mm-hmm. In today's episode, sexual repression.
Dun, 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 dun. Sexual repression.
The trauma of tits.
Yep.
The trauma of dick. The trauma of putting those together before marriage. The trauma of two dicks together. Whoa! What about two vaginas? Whoa! What about nothing at all?
What about nothing at all?
Not possible, because in the Bible, there is two options, man or a woman, and those two come together. And if you don't do it the right way, you find yourself suffering from immense amounts of sinful guilt.
Or you'll find yourself at a camp where they're like, you're not gay, you're not gay, you're not gay, you're not gay.
You aren't gay. Actually, I'm attracted to you.
Dude, I saw a really, really funny Reddit post the other day where it was the #1 gay conversion camp in the country. The runner of it is now living in Texas with his husband.
Oh, wow. I think I heard about this.
Yeah, love it. Love it, dude.
The leader of a sexual reconstruction, or what's it called? Reconversion.
It's like a reconversion camp.
So it's like if you're homosexual,
gay, yeah.
and you're gay, then parents send you there and then they like brainwash you out of it.
Brainwash you out of it.
It got shut down, right? Because those are terribly abusive and horrible.
Well, it was the biggest one. They're still out there.
So he's a gay living in Texas
now with his husband. It makes you angry? It makes me excited, man.
It's not. What do you mean? It's of course it's angering.
Obviously, the runner of the camp
is angering.
Also battling their gay.
That means they were sucking cock and chopping it off at the same time.
Dude, one of the...
Or what was really happening at those camps?
Exactly. Hopefully, when we have this person on, there's a guest that will most likely get on at some point.
We have like specific people we know we'll have on.
I used to be in a music class with them. And I remember them telling me about they were threatened by their dad, who also was a pastor, being sent to one of these camps because they came out as a homosexual at the time. And they were like, do it. You want to put me around a bunch of gay dudes? Do it. Because it's serious, dude. It's all you're doing. It's like, hey, go to a camp with a bunch of other kids who are battling their gayness.
It's like,
what do you think's going to happen?
You're joining the Marines.
Great.
Thankfully.
Yeah. Sweet.
Have you seen the bald heads on those fuckers?
Yeah.
Can't wait to rub my cock on that.
Exactly, dude. Sorry, we're getting distracted here.
Let's jump in.
Yeah, let's go.
Like we've said the last couple casts, we've been coming up with these questions to help spearhead the conversations together. Some of them are more generalized. Some of them are really intense. And we've read through them once right before we hit record. And so we're going to go through them one at a time.
Yep.
Zach, I'm going to read this one. And why don't you, just like in the Olympics, the person who starts with why don't you start with the fire first?
Want me to read the first one?
No, I'm going to read it and I'm going to hand you the fire and you're going to start the run. Okay?
Oh, boy. Okay.
Can you recall a specific incident from your religious upbringing where you felt intense shame or guilt regarding your sexuality? And how did it shape your perspective?
Intense shame or guilt.
Which we talked about this the last cast.
It comes up often.
This is kind of what led us to this cast, right?
Well, and sexual repression is just huge in the faith. It's so big. And so when I think of like my guilt and shame, it was my guilt and shame for being a sexual being. Because there's so many teachings in the Bible that teach you not to give in to any sexual part of yourself. I even didn't feel good about like when I would be married, I'd be okay with being sexual because I was repressing it all my childhood. That the point,
all right.
How did it shape your perspective?
Well, just like a specific incident.
I mean, I think having youth pastors asking about my masturbation is like a pretty big guilt. I felt pretty guilty for.
Can you remember
being
like
sexual.
Those are specific, like, and we've talked about those before, but like, has there been anything in the church that specifically happened?
So there was a handful of men's retreats that I was sent to. And a men's retreat, we always try to clarify, just for anyone that wasn't raised in the church, is just a retreat for men to go to, no women. And it's basically teachings for men on how to be a better Christian as a man. And one of the big, buff, handsome pastors would always say, "Men, you're horny mice. You can't control yourself." And they would just burn that in your brain as a kid that you're horny and you can't control yourself. And you know what? I was horny and I could totally control myself. Growing up, I always could control myself because I was too guilty for being sexual that I would never give in, ever, in front of anybody, my sexual desires.
Do you call that control, though? Or is that you controlling you, or is that church.
Oh, I was
the
terrified.
teachings.
No, yeah. I mean, I say I was in control. I was never going to make a hiccup. I was never going to be like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed with my emotions and my hormones that I'm going to have sex with this girl or boy or whatever. Like any feelings, I was repressing them because I was waiting till marriage to such an extreme degree that I even felt guilty for thinking.
You brought up that youth pastor, whoever said that to you, the men, your horny mice. So that sounds like that was a specific teaching or incident that you remember that really affected.
I just remember being a 13-year-old boy and thinking, no. And there was many teachings that I didn't think that way, that I would just agree because that's all I was taught. But that one in particular, I think why it sticks with me is I was like, even at 13, like, you're so wrong. Like I couldn't be on board with that. I was just this horny, uncontrollable being. And that when it came to shame and guilt, it's shame and guilt around having sexual desires and sexual thoughts, and different people react to those differently. And I just wasn't one of the boys that ever really reacted to those, but I still had them, and I felt very guilty for having them.
Yeah, and I think that you're expressing like it's a little bit more generalized, the shame and guilt that you experience from the church's teachings or the church's upbringing on you.
Mm-hmm.
That
a specific instance is tough because I can't, like, nothing. I never was like sexually abused in the church or molested, and that's something you hear so big, like a
right.
specific
I think there's a
incident.
lot. Unfortunately, there's a lot of that, and that's the hot topic you hear about a lot. Like priests.
Exactly.
And but like I have one that's specific.
Tell me.
That we've said this so many times. This is our church. This is our church here. And so with our father being a Christian evangelical pastor, the church doesn't fall from the tree to our parents. Like, they are the church. And so the separation between parents and church sometimes is difficult. So a lot of the teachings that our father taught us were those of what the church teaches. And it was like, you go to church to hear a pastor talk. Well, that's what the pastor's just talking to you, but it's your father. And so it was like pastoral teachings about everything.
Yeah.
One of those for my life was constant long conversations around sexual desire and like pinpointing any sort of feeling I had or anything. It was like, well, this is what it's supposed to be. This is why you're having that feeling, and da-da-da-da-da-da. So there was one specific time, and I'm sure I've shared some of briefly this on this cast, but that I was young and it was hard to find any like pictures of naked people in our house.
Yeah.
I remember in 7th grade, or was it 8th grade? There was a kid in the school who was like the porno kid. He was like addicted to tits, and he had like little cards in his wallet, like naked, like porn stars and girls. And I would bring my Bible to school.
Yep.
So that was like the contrast, right? You have the weirdo kid who just started 7th grade who brought his Bible to school, and then you have the other kid who has like pictures of porn in his wallet.
Yep.
Just to put into perspective that I was like so afraid of the pictures he had in his wallet, because I wanted to look at them so bad. And I would know, like, the feeling I would get of like knowing that's the dude who has like boobs that have implants in them, and I've heard of them, and I know I just want to see, but I know I can't. And he would like run up to me and pull them out and be like, "Hey, Christian boy," and throw them in my face, and I'd be like, like, "Ah, my baby." Ooh.
Yeah.
And
guilt.
And he'd be like, "Just relax, bro. It's just tits." And I'd be like, "It's not just tits." And then he ended up like giving me one of them. And I felt so guilty having it that I threw away that day. And I remember getting home being like, wow, that was my chance. And it was so confusing, everything. So around that age, 7th grade, I'm in my room. And the access I had to like, I would like pull up, our father had we said this so many times, but I'll say it again. Our father had like a protection thing on the or all the computers called Covenant Eyes, so that every little picture on any website that resembled a naked woman, not a man, naked woman.
Well, and man, it was any sex.
Oh, was it? It was
any sex,
any sexual thing, like anything from like actual porn to like underwear, ads.
If you're on a gaming website and there's like an underwear ad, it'll get flagged as red and get sent to your dad.
Exactly. And so it was like, you can't, like, when the internet, we all had our own computers, and like you couldn't like search anything because it was like the eyes were always watching. So one of the loopholes I had was like looking at eBay underwear ads, like literally bras and like stuff like that. And so there was like one night I'm just, masturbating, looking at underwear ads. And, father walks in and pants are down at my ankles. It's like 2 a.m. And I like see him and he sees me and he's like half asleep and he's just like, most dads would just be like, go to bed and like close the door, right? Turn that off, go to bed. Or however, you imagine, like they don't want to get involved. Like just get rid of it. And he was like, oh, Nathan. Instant, like deep breath, like, oh, buddy. And he walks into my room and closes the door, pants are at my ankles, cock in my hand. And I'm like, and he's like, go ahead and pull your pants up. And I was like, I pulled my pants up and he's like, come take a seat with me on the bed. And I'm like, and I like sit down on the bed, proceeded to give me an 1.5 hour conversation about marriage, weddings, love, like family, what's going to happen. And something he said to me in that conversation. And this is not about saying anything ill about the father. It's more of just about this is the church. Is he said, and this was taught, youth pastor said this to me, but I remember at that time, it felt so like, I'm not even, there's tits at school. I'm looking at an underwear, like, It was so awkward. And I was still too young to understand fully what was going on. And one of the things I was told was, the decisions you make today and the things you look at today will be burned in you forever. And it's going to hurt your future wife. Yeah. And I remember that was like ingrained. And I was like, oh my God.
I don't want to hurt my future wife.
I don't want to hurt my family.
Yeah.
He's like, and you're going to see things that are going to never leave you. So the choices you make to look at things, you'll never be able to forget them. And that really fucked me up because there's a lot of crazy shit online. So when I like fast forward 4 years later, I get kicked out and I'm on my own and we have internet and I got a MacBook or whatever. And like, we can get in that whole conversation of like the life of just looking at naked people, right? And having a sexual relationship with myself was so difficult and so much guilt around that for so long. But that, every time that I would like see something that was so just sexual, I would have that thought. Like, I wonder if this is like, what the heck? Why am I thinking that? Yeah. I'm wondering if I'm going to hurt my future relationship. And I'd be like, wait, that's crazy. That's crazy. But that was stuck with me in relationships. And yeah, it was wild. So that really affected me. That really caused a lot of personal shame to think that every naked woman I saw that aroused me or naked man that aroused me. And it's like, well, who knows if you're going to make it through your marriage now? Who knows?
Yeah, dude. And just not being taught anything about sex too.
I feel like, sex was such an important conversation, but it wasn't ever about how to wear a condom.
And it was why to wear a condom. When you get married, you should know what sex is.
Or consent.
And the talk was like, I mean, I don't want to get into how my parents gave me a sex talk. I don't even know if I really remember it. And I think I would if I had one. I know you had one.
Because I remember
when you had one.
Yeah. Maybe you repressed it.
Maybe, man. But I can tell you one thing. I was never taught, and I've mentioned this multiple times, people as evangelical as our family and the church that we were raised in, there is no possibility of you walking away because there's no life after you walk away. And so why would we plan you? Why would we prepare you for anything of this life besides an evangelical Christian life? So you're not taught about condoms. And the argument there is, well, you were taught about them in school. And it's like, not really, though, because I didn't believe in health class or science because I was an evangelical Christian. And I already knew that abstinence is the only way. So do you think I paid attention in school and actually cared? While, like you said, the kids are coming to school with tits in their wallets and I'm not because I'm a good person. They're bad people. And I'm a good person because I'm not going to give in these sexual desires. So I don't need condoms. Why would I ever use a condom? I'm not having sex till I'm married. Like these things were just in my brain that I never even understood I was thinking them or why I wasn't interested in certain things at school. In reality, it was just because it was ingrained to me not to be interested in them, but to not be taught how to use a condom and to not be taught how to have safe sex. If you're going to choose to have sex as a being who is sexual ever, leads to you having, when you do walk away and start to have sex with people, or, you get a girlfriend at 17 and you happen to lose your virginity to her, and then your whole world is sex after that. And you thought, well, now I'm going to hell. And so nothing matters anymore. Everything I've been working towards my entire childhood is all fucked.
Because you hadn't walked away from Christianity until so you were just sinning in your life.
Yeah, but doing the worst thing ever you could do.
So like you were like a Christian boy who's like got his first girlfriend, loses his virginity, and you're breaking the rules, and you're getting drunk.
No, not even. I was not drinking yet. Not even close. I wasn't doing any drugs.
But
nothing.
You were still a Christian doing the sex before marriage.
I was a Christian who brought my first girlfriend, who I was terrified to have because she was Catholic. I remember taking mom aside on a camping trip because she was like, "You're not talking to anybody, and you're being really distant." And I was like, "Mom, there's this girl I like, and she's Catholic, and I don't know what to do."
Oh, damn.
And
you just had a whole different experience.
I know, dude.
With that,
and
man.
mom was like, "Why are you so scared?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me, Mom? She's Catholic." And even mom was like, "Where did you get this idea that that's bad?" And I was like, I was so confused because I was like, "What are you talking about? This is the teachings you've taught me since I was born." And the thing is, man, is I was so blinded that I was like, she is excited about church and she wants to come. So maybe we can convert her. And we did. And the thing is she was the most sexual being in my vicinity of friends at the school. And I just happened to date her because I was trying to get over another Christian girl that I had a huge crush on. And it ended up being an insanely manipulative, very sexual relationship, but like controlling and manipulative because I didn't know what I was doing. And the second I crossed that boundary, I didn't have parents to talk to and I didn't have anyone to talk to. And it was just me as a 17-year-old boy with no knowledge on sex and making mistake after mistake after mistake.
So would you say that, because there's a lot that we've learned on this cast where we actually don't share our experiences at all, which is why it's so fascinating. But the one thing we do share is the first partners or the first connections we had to other people that were like sexual experiences were both like very manipulative sexual experiences, but like not trying to put any pressure on other people. It was that we were so freaking like innocent, literally innocent.
So innocent, dude.
And Christian. Because I remember the first person I was with was also like a lot of my damage came from that first, like things happened where I felt so guilty.
Yeah.
And like and my mom and dad were like different experience. They like treated me really poorly for being with that person or just hanging out with them.
This is also the same girl. Man, this is just such a vulnerable podcast. It's hard to like just not be insanely vulnerable and be like, well, I hope no one hears this. Kind of way it feels. But this is the same girl that when I did get overwhelmed with guilt that I was having sex with her and I had an anxiety attack and it was really bad. I had to tell mom and dad. That's the only way I can get rid of the anxiety is the guilt was so overwhelming. And when I told them, they were like, you have to move out now. And I was 17. You were the example of they will kick you out. And I told them, okay, I'm fucking 17, dude. I talked to her mom and I can move into her house. 17.
Yeah.
Junior year, high school. And dad lost it. Mom broke down because they were like, what? And I'm like, I've planned that I knew this was going to go bad. I needed to tell you because I'm having so much anxiety and I'm panicking. And the room changed and dad lost it. And he's like, go back here. I mean, I don't want to really put like, it's parental trauma at this point. It's not, I mean, it is really just trauma, but it's real parental trauma. Bad argument, real bad. To the point of where just to calm the parents down, I was like, fine, I'll stop having sex. And in the back of my head, I'm like, you guys are crazy. Because it was like, I am trying to be an honest son with you that I don't know how to stop having sex now.
It's almost like they like talking to them released you of some of that guilt and anxiety, but then you like learned that it's like, okay, I'm less anxious by them knowing I'm less anxious, but they're causing me way more pain.
Yeah.
And even it's still so confusing, right? So you're like, thanks for being my mommy and daddy. Looks like I'm gonna have to start hiding things.
It's exactly what happened.
Looks like for your experience, that is really intense. I never knew that happened. That they like you had that experience too with them. It was
Well, so at this time in my life, I only had contact with you outside the home. You weren't allowed to come to the house. It's just weird to remember it because I think I blocked a lot of our relationship out at that time, but it was about a 2.5, 3 year period where we weren't really allowed to see each other. And
Was it that long?
It was. Remember when I texted you? You were just starting at the junior college, and I texted you, and I was like, I need condoms. And I think I brought this joke up one time, and you were like, "You made it." It's like, and I was like, I don't know how to get them. And you're like, first you got to know what size you are. Remember that?
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And you played that joke on me. But then you met me at the little town green there, and you gave me a couple condoms, and you were like being the older brother. That was like I had interactions with you pulling up in your car and then going back to your life, and that was about it. But this all happened when, of course, didn't hear about it. But it's not like you weren't there. You weren't allowed to even be in our lives at that point. And so it was just a different time, different situation. And this is when I started to have arguments with our parents, where in the past I would just be quiet in my room.
Right.
Yeah. And so it was a changing time for me. But another point,
who would have thought you started having sex and you started feeling really guilty and they made you feel even worse for it. And you're like, now we're going to start arguing.
Well, so I did what they wanted, told them what they wanted. And then I was just like, well, I guess I have to live with this guilt because I can't stop having sex.
Yeah.
And I don't want to badmouth anybody, but I fell in love with every girl I ever had a crush on, to the point of where I would have married them in that moment because that's what I was taught to do. And I had this crush on this girl from another town for like a 1.5 years, and I would confess my love to her every single month. And seriously, man, it was brutal. And this is what this repression and like religious trauma really looks like, is the most innocent boy just like, but the tales are true and I have met my love. And it's like, that's not how the world works, Zach. It's like you're living in a fantasy world. And she was like really sweet, and I'd confess my love, and she'd be like, yeah, no. And I'm like, maybe next month. And I just was lost in the cycle. And I finally got to this point, older, like 17, in junior in high school, that I was like, this is my last time. Tell you I like you. And she was like, yeah, it's just, we're not going to have a relationship. And I was like, cool. And so I instantly started texting this other girl who had the crush on me for a really long time. And because she was interested in me, I was like, I'm in love with her. And so I just fell fucking in love with her, and then started this crazy relationship with her, and thought I was going to marry her. So I thought it was okay to have sex with her. And led to just a lot of pain in my life, and a lot of real, like, insane lessons to learn from a very innocent place. Not just like, we all go through tough high school relationships, but go through that same abusive relationship with no relationship advice, no sex advice, no advice at all. And all you know is God's love and the Bible. And it's like, cool. Well, that's a recipe for disaster. But wow. So I thought I was going to marry her. And then the second that ended, I was like, all I want to do is party and have sex now, because I already fucked up. And so what did I do? It's like, that's when the partying started to really happen. And that's when, like,
yeah, man, that's wild. And I think that, like, talking about like sexual repressions in the way we do it on this, talking about anything on this cast, what it's doing is it's bringing back all of these things.
Yeah.
But it's bringing back the stories and the things that have kind of, whether we've healed with them on our own or not, they were by design affected so much because of the church. Mm-hmm. And because of that guilt and that shame. It's wild.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I went on a fucking spew there.
That's the whole point, though. Get it out. You want to just skip the next question?
Well, I have a nice verse to read for it.
Question 2.
Let's light them on fire.
It says, were there particular teachings or doctrines within your former religion that explicitly repressed sexual expression? And how did you come to challenge or reject these beliefs? I mean, yes. Particular teachings and doctrines, we found 2 verses from the Bible that are so
specific.
And we want to share these. Go for it.
We normally don't read scripture on this cast. We actually have yet to read any
because
scripture.
You could just open the Bible. It's obvious. Just read it and you'll be like, whoa.
Yeah, if you just read the Bible at all, just get through like the first 4 books, and you'll have like 45 verses, if you're not Christian, that you're like, this doesn't seem really fun. It doesn't seem good. We get it. There's stuff in the Bible that's fine and beautiful, and it's filled with poetry. Is it? Yeah. Let's see this. Let's see if 1 Corinthians 6:18 through 20 is full of poetry. Flee from sexual immorality. All other sins a person commits are outside the body, but whoever sins sexually sins against their own body. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies.
And that was Leviticus, you said?
Corinthians, First
Corinthians, yeah. So it's New Testament. So it's saying you were
Corinthians
bought.
is Old Testament, no?
Is it, what? Oh my God, that's how far removed we are?
I'm pretty sure it's Old Testament.
Are you sure?
Who cares?
First and Second Corinthians?
It doesn't matter. Does it really matter? It's in the Bible.
It does, because it's saying in that verse that you were bought.
Right.
Who bought you? What does that mean? Isn't it the blood of Jesus?
Well, yeah, Jesus died on the cross.
So that would be the New Testament, right?
Yeah.
That'd have to be the New Testament.
Maybe.
Oh man, Zachary is so far removed from the Bible and church, he doesn't even remember the gospel. Can you believe that? The point of that verse, it's okay, we don't need to get too caught up on it, but like the point of that verse saying your body is a temple. Okay, so this was like
New Testament.
This is like shared. This is how far removed you are. You're like, I think Corinthians is it's okay. That's a good thing.
I know, it's a great thing.
Having a religious trauma cast and not having knowledge that much of the Bible anymore is a good thing.
Yeah.
But that like this idea of that your body is a temple of God, like it's a temple. So it's pure. So anything that you do to that is ultimately like affecting the temple, this pure temple of God that is your body. And you taint it with that sinful sexual
and just nature. Comment on that. That was used a lot, that your body is a temple.
Everything when it came to like...
But it was way more used on women in terms of like, but don't fuck up the woman's temple.
Interesting.
Like, I don't know if you ever got that vibe from like, men will make mistakes sexually. And if they do, they will repent, but like a woman can't.
I think I was, and not until like maybe sophomore year of high school when I became really, really close. Like some of my closest friends were girls at a certain point, like from the church and like connected through high school and stuff. But I was such a young, egotistical, narcissistic boy. Like, not like I wasn't narcissistic by nature, but just like I couldn't think outside of my own head. So I never even thought about the girls' experience until I was like 16, 17. And
I didn't think about the girls' experience until I was 25, dude.
I guess like my point being that like, I
now.
Can't wait to have people on this cast that are identifying as female, and like can share what it felt like, because there's plenty of questions I have regarding these types of things. But for me, it was just like I really felt like I was always tainting the temple of God. Like my body, like it was such like what a weird thing that your body's a temple. I think that's like can be a beautiful thing, but like the way it's being taught.
Well, even just there in that verse, you are not your own. You were bought at a price.
Right, that's what I was saying.
Ew, you slave.
Well,
it's like, what is that?
That's just referring to Jesus dying on the cross.
I get it, but it's just worded in a way that it's like you don't own any of your thoughts and any of your actions.
Yeah, it's formatted to like there's no other option but to feel shame and guilt if you act outside of that.
Yeah.
Like this white man that's portrayed in our culture, right? Gave this pure person, gave his body for you. How dare you defile yours? Yeah. It's like, you're right. How dare I?
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
So much shame. Next.
So much shame.
Next verse.
Leviticus.
Okay. This is Old Testament now.
I love that you know that. I don't know that. 18 through 20. No, wait. 18, 20. I don't know. Who cares? Leviticus. Do not have sexual relations with a man as one does with a woman. That is detestable.
Oh, God. How awful. How awful of you. It's so fucked up.
I know.
Do not, and clearly the verse isn't written for women. It's written for men. And it's Old Testament.
Yeah.
So it's just like, wow. It's everything. There's so much in that verse that's so insane.
And also just like it's so backwards. So it's only men can have sex with men. So women you have the reign. You can be as gay as you want, technically, from that verse.
Well, there's no acknowledgement that women are alive at all.
When are they acknowledged in the Bible?
Men do not have sex with men as you do with women. It's detestable.
Just like
and Christians say that in the Bible, it doesn't say being gay is wrong.
Oh yeah, what? Who told you that?
So many Christians are like, that's not true. You're just like overreading it. You're overreading it. You're not looking. You're like you're putting words in. I've heard that so much where it's like it actually doesn't say that in the Bible.
Oh, interesting.
I've heard that.
I've always been taught from our father as the pastor that it does say it in the Bible, and there's I don't think it's about homosexuality, but there's another thing that Christians focus on. I can't really think of it right now, but I have asked our father. I'm like, where's that in the Bible? He's like, it's actually not. And so I don't know what that one is though.
Interesting.
Let's move on though.
Yeah. Question 3. How has the repression of sexual desires affected your romantic relationships or sexual identity? And what steps have you taken to overcome these challenges?
Yeah, I think this is the biggest one when it comes to religious trauma. And the future and where I'm at now and like where everything we've talked about thus far is what it was like being a child and teenager and the sexual trauma ended, right? It's like, no.
Well, so I think that if we can be really honest right now with this question, you and I had, and still to this day, have very different experiences in our sexual lives, based on what happened to us after leaving the church in this. Because there's like, when I at 17 was kicked out and hit the road, the sexual repression was so internal, but there was such an external sexual expression where a lot of my sexual identity, because in this question it talks about how did the repression of sexual desires affect your romantic relationships, which means the relationship we're in right now and every relationship before, right? Or sexual identity. And I've talked about this a lot in this cast. And even in my plant medicine journeys this year, I've had a lot of growth and reformatting and clarity on my own sexual identity, which is like so freaking fluid. It's unbelievable.
Hence the name change.
Yes. Our name used to be Those Boys. And after I went off into the mountains and did some plant medicine, I connected so much more with my sexual identity and realized that we didn't want to have any sort of specific identity, demanding identity in our names or anything. Because my sexual identity has become so much more fluid as I've healed and grown. And I'm 33 and this is happening this year. And so it's pretty consistent. And I think whether you're growing up in the church or not, there's this sort of conservative look and like all of that's been changing, right? And it's such a good time. If you're in the church and you want to break free, this is a better time than ever. But so for me, like all of that sexual repression was like it's like a pressure cooker, and it was building and building and building, and I could feel it. And I was like, like masturbation was such a guilty thing in the church. But when I got to like 16, 17, and right before I was getting kicked out, like there was so much going on in my life that was like, like smoking weed without the parents knowing, like being with my best friend, and he would be sharing crazy like doctrines from like these, Rosicrucian, religions and other religions, and being like really helping me like break out of the shell and reformat. And then I had a partner at the time, like my first real girlfriend at the time. When I got kicked out, I moved into my friend's pool house, and then we all got an apartment together. And within a matter of the first month, I had broken up with that girlfriend at the time, because when we had moved in with each other that first week, I realized that like, one, this person wasn't healthy for me, and I wasn't healthy for them, and we shouldn't be together. And also that like I'd found myself making decisions that I never would have made because I was so scared to be alone. And I was so scared to speak up for myself in that relationship. And so I had found myself right out of the house, right out of the church, being in a relationship that was almost identical to the parents. They considered themselves an atheist, but they were sexually controlling. I was very confused with I had so much sexual desire in me in that relationship. And they were somebody who repressed a lot of their sexual energy. They weren't even raised religious. It was just the way it went. So there was a huge imbalance and a mismatch in between like sexual expression and sexual needs and fulfilling that. So that relationship reinstilled like a lot of guilt and shame and like feeling really weird that I like wanted to have sex with my partner, but they didn't want to have sex with me, rarely ever. And it was always like trying to figure out, is it me? Is it them? And it was so confusing. And then I like moved in with them and I was like, wait a minute. And they were so controlling and I was like angry and I felt sexually repressed more. And then we broke up and it was like the craziest breakup.
Oh yeah, I
it was
remember.
So brutal. Everything I gave this person, because this was my first partner, first relationship. I wrote them a whole entire album, music. I wrote them poetry, bought them every little, like, it was just like all of my hopeless romantic thing I ever wanted to do for somebody. I poured into that relationship because I'm going to marry them.
Yeah.
And we broke up and everything I ever gave, they broke everything. It was like your classic crazy breakup and they destroyed everything. And it was just really toxic. And then I ended up getting back with that person 2 months later because I didn't know how to say no to them when they like came crawling back, and they got back together with me. And then within the first 2 weeks of being back together with me, and I'm thinking like, maybe this is going to work out. I was with them for almost 3 years and I was just so googly eyed and blurry eyed and all this stuff. And then bam, they slept with one of my good friends. Yeah. And it was the first experience of my life of just humanity and sex and how confusing it is. And you don't need church for it to be confusing, and people can use it to control, and you can get really, really, really hurt when you're like really sexually involved in a relationship at that age. And the fact that this person got back together with me so that they could hurt me in the long run by cheating on me. And after that was when like there was so much confusion and trauma and pain, and I repressed all of that pain. Mm-hmm. It was like, oh, this is so bad. This is like really bad. And I could never not think about any car that looked like them. And it was so obvious what had happened. And I felt like such an idiot. And so the way that I came out of my shell, like out of the church and out of that relationship and out of that pain, was the next 2 years after that, from like, like 19, 20, were me, expressing myself sexually and just, like I couldn't say, I was like, how do I want to say it? Like, I didn't have the greatest game. I didn't know how to talk with, I was awkward. I was funny. I'd always say the weird joke, but I found myself not being able to say no, like, and there's alcohol involved. And so there's all this suppression already. And like, so I found myself getting really hurt at those ages of my life by like hooking up with people that I didn't want to. Mm-hmm. But like had such a sexual need to be fulfilled. And I just wanted to be loved. And so much of that need to be loved was if I felt so loved after like making out with somebody, or like just being around somebody that I was attracted to, was like, oh, I feel less lonely and I feel so loved. And so this idea of being able to like sex was such a distraction. Mm. It's like any date I went on, it was like, not even coming from a bro-y headspace. It was just like, I wonder if I'm gonna have sex with them. I wonder if I'm gonna have sex with them. I wonder if I'm gonna have sex with them. I wonder if I'm gonna have sex with them. It was like, I couldn't think about anything else. Mm. And I had the ability to communicate and had this desire for relationship, but I was so overwhelmed and consumed with guilt and shame and being like, I'm not a Christian anymore. I don't deal with this, but I've been cheated on and all this shit. Like, fuck love.
So now, just to push it a little forward, now you're engaged.
Right.
Do you still struggle with any of this sexual guilt? Or
I think it's so much has happened from the age of 18, 19, 20 to 33. And I have been in, on like, when it comes to serious relationships, I think it was 4 real serious relationships, mm-hmm. and have met and dated, like not nearly as many guys, but like have had experiences on both ends of the spectrum for me. And, the gay experiences I had in my mid-20s were wildly transformative and fearful. Mm. Right. So after I'd gotten over a lot of sexual guilt in my early 20s, I dealt with a lot of that sexual guilt in my early 20s and shame, and had found myself in toxic relationships. But I think every relationship that doesn't work out has moments of toxicity, and that's why maybe it doesn't work.
I think even healthy relationships have moments of toxicity.
And so like that's none of it's about, I have had so much peace. I was such a difficult person to be with too at times, controlling and confused in my relationships sexually about my desires and my needs. I couldn't say no. I couldn't let somebody go that wasn't working out for me. I was like stuck a lot. And so that question you're asking is, I think every relationship I would imagine, goes through sexual growth and transformations, and like got to keep things spicy, and you got to like, you have lows and highs and like what have you. But in my partnership now and where I've become personally, there was handfuls of relations, like people that I had met that helped bridge the gap of just, hey, welcome to humanity. It's okay. We're all just humans, baby. Hey, we're all just humans. Yeah, no, but I'm so sorry. No. You didn't do anything wrong. We were all just human, like whatever it was that I felt guilty about, like whatever, or like learning how to speak for like, I want this, and like demand, like being able to have the confidence to get what I need sexually in a healthy and productive way was so difficult in my, early 20s, mid 20s, that the relationship I'm in now, I finally, I learned before the person, it's just such a hard thing to talk about because it gets so deep, but like the person I'm with now and going to marry and the love of my life, it just makes so much sense. Her and I have done since day one that we started talking. What made sense was that her and I had been meeting one eye to eye on sexual needs, emotional needs, like physical needs. There was a lot of things that made sense to us. It was like, oh, we met our match. Like we really work this is easy. Wow, this is amazing when you're with somebody who wants you as much as you want them sexually. And there's no pressure. There's no guilt. Like, so in the first year of being with my fiance, I dealt with more than I could have imagined, the deep stuff. Because I just had never been with somebody that I fell in love with, that I wanted to be with and build a relationship with, that had a equal and honest sexual desires I did for their partner. Most of every relationship I was in before that, it felt like there was a sexual imbalance, and it was always my fault. Why do I want sex so bad? Yeah. Why do I want to have sex with my partner so bad? Because they don't want to have sex with me. So I found myself, I think it was like partly like I found myself in relationships with people that weren't the same as me, didn't have the same needs. And instead of me being able to like see that as a red flag or maybe an issue, it was like double down into it. And I know there's something there, being with somebody who who kind of sucks the sexual energy out of you because they can't reflect it back. And there's something there that feels familiar. Like, oh, that feels like my child. Oh, that's right. I'm not allowed to have sex before marriage and all that. So it was almost like a reflection of that guilt and shame in my partners, not them specifically. Everyone has their own issues or own growth they need to go through. But ultimately, if you can find somebody that wants and has the same sexual needs and can grow with you, then as somebody who was dealing with a lot of trauma and guilt and shame, I was able to, like, when it came to pornography, masturbating on my own in a relationship, right? Like, so the partner I'm with now was pretty much like, there's nothing that you're doing that's wrong. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you're just a person and I'm happy that you're doing that. You should have your own sexual relationship. And it was like, what? You know what I mean? Like it was rare to already have, like, outside of the church, it's rare to like meet confident people that are like sexually, I don't know how to describe it. So there was just so much about my partner now that was perfect for me at that time, that first year. And once I was able to find foundation of just how to accept myself sexually, then real growth and like new construction, and that's like my sexual identity. I've given like so much credit to the partner I have now who's equally as fluid as I am, and has grown at a similar pace with me together. And as I have reached new heights in my sexual identity, it's helped them reach new heights. And as they've reached new heights in their sexual identity, it's helped me. Like we are like in this together.
So are you saying you're trying to correlate your, the same way you had to repress your sexuality as a young boy being raised evangelical, you're saying it unconsciously reflected into the other girlfriends? Just threw me off guard. The other girlfriends you chose throughout your 20s, and the girls you unconsciously were attracted to also were ones that were going to repress sex from you in a little bit, or not meet you on your sexual needs, almost like you chose that unknowingly, trying to kind of get back into that little boy not able to have sex.
Yeah, I did not know. I think what you're saying is like, I didn't have the ability to take responsibility for my own life. I didn't have the ability to take responsibility. I was reacting to my relationships. Like, oh man, my girlfriend's so hot. And this or that. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't an ability to take responsibility over, I didn't know who I was. Like, I didn't know who I was sexually. And so I didn't know who I was sexually as a kid. And whenever I started to figure out who I was sexually as a kid, it was repressed. It was told, no. Like, you're not allowed to, like, starting from that story I said, with like just a kid that's 13, 14, jacking off in their room, and their dad comes in to talk to you about marriage and your future wife and says, whatever you look at now will probably have a negative impact on your future wife. That led all the way to like, every time if I was in a relationship with somebody and they made me feel guilty for looking at porn, which was like, I'm just trying to figure out my life, trying to figure out my sexual desires or whatever. It was like, I felt terrible that I could ever do that to my partner. Yeah. So I'm not going to look at a single thing. I'm not going to jack off on my own.
Interesting.
In this relationship. I'm not going to do anything because I don't want to hurt them. Because I know, even though I'm not a Christian anymore, it's like, I know all of that stuck. And the people I'm with are young, you're 18, 19, insecure as fuck. Like, I don't know any that time in my life and that that age, and then like the time we were growing up, those years, like, it's intimidating, if your partner's like looking, like, it was rare. I remember like when I was in my first job as a busser, I worked with a server there who was outside smoking a cigarette, and I used to go back and smoke cigarettes with her. And she was like, and she just asked me, it's like it was a weird, she was like, do you have sex? And I'm like, yeah, I'm in a relationship. She was like, me and my partner like to look at porn. Like, she just told me this. Yeah. It was one of these, servers, Me and my partner look at porn, and then we try to imitate what they do. And I remember being like, cool. No, like, what that's like, I didn't know if it was wrong, if it was bad, or if it was good. It was like, just, I'm feeling a lot of feelings right now, and that sounds fun, but I would never do. I don't know if I could ever do that. Yeah. That sounds great. That sounds so fun. It'll be like, that sounds so fun. That sounds so nice to have a partner like that. But oh my God, I would never have that. I don't have that with my partner. Yeah. It was like, all of that's what it felt like. It's just like, now look at me. Yeah. It's like, I am the porn.
Yeah. And it's also hard to decipher. It's also hard to decipher that from a religious trauma standpoint and just being young.
So young, I smoked a cigarette, and like,
I think that's just like, it's for at least us, it's hard for me to decipher some of the things that like happen in conversations like that, where you're like, that made me uncomfortable, and I'm thinking about it 24/7 now.
Like, what does that mean?
Like, am I just growing up, or is that like, was I repressed? But yeah, dude, restaurant industry is fucking weird. You learn some shit in the restaurant industry.
To answer, you learn a lot of shit in the restaurant industry. But to finish answer your question, like, I think that I was subconsciously finding myself living my trauma. I'm just reliving it because, like, it's like, how do I say it? Going back to an abusive relationship. Yeah. It's hard to leave an abusive relationship, right? Why? Yeah. Because it's familiar, it's safe, because that's what you're used to. You don't know anything else. Yeah. So how are you supposed to grow if you keep finding yourself in relationships that are toxic? The person's not growing at the same pace you want to. You have anger issues. You're sexually repressed. They're sexually repressed. It's tough.
I think any relationship where you don't have any agency is pretty toxic.
Right.
And I think my relationship with God, I didn't have any agency. And so it was pretty toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You want to know what's funny about this conversation? We made it through 3 questions.
No, I know. We should probably just go a tiny bit longer. I feel like we're missing a couple things. Maybe just like one more question that we could choose. I haven't really gone through them. But so just... you keep kind of beating around the bush here and like I don't want to say over explaining, just kind of going into detail on your relationships. And do you still struggle with the same, I don't want to use the same. Do you still struggle with like guilt after you have sex?
Oh no, never. And I haven't since I was in my early 20s. Yeah. I haven't felt guilty from sex. I didn't feel guilty from sex ever. That's where I think you and I are really different. Yeah. Is I felt free I felt good. If it was like a powerful thing, it was like, I just did it. It was my relationships, the people in my relationships outside of the church had like, made me feel guilty for certain things.
Interesting.
Like I was like in a guilty relationship. So I think that's what you were asking was like, so like there were things where I felt really guilty for wanting to have sex with my partner and then being confused why they didn't want me back. And that was like very insecure and confusing and like made me like overthink everything. But like if you're asking me in my life, like when I got over that sexual guilt, I never dealt with it that way. That's my point, is that it was a pressure cooker. So when I got out of the house and like out of that first relationship, it was like, boom, welcome to the stars. And it was so fun. It was just complicated. And I was confused. But sex was the reward, right? I was addicted to the reward that dopamine release. I was like, this is what they were holding me back from. And so then the next question would maybe come up like, I have a 12-year-old. How did that happen? Because there's this idea of why are you having, I wasn't taking responsibility for my feelings. I was just reacting to the urges that were repressed for so long that it was like, you're free. What you gonna do?
Yeah.
It was like.
Well, in your kid situation, it's a little different. And we can't really talk about it on this podcast, but it's not just you making bad choices. That was a little more manipulation on that side.
Oh yeah, no, I was just making choices.
Yeah.
And then I got trapped.
Yeah.
And then ended up
literally.
And we can't talk about it in this cast, and that's fine. I don't think I have any desire to. It's not something that even really needs to come up here on this because it's a completely different situation than religious trauma.
But it's incredibly relates to this though, because
I couldn't say no.
Something that you and I both have said multiple times is we never felt like we were given the agency to ever say no. And if there's a handful of situations I can think of where I was like, I just didn't say no, I just did it. And it wasn't like the worst of things, but I would rather have not have done it. And I didn't say no because I didn't even know then, but I didn't know how.
Responsibility.
And I look at your situation and I'm like, your situation, you talk about it multiple times, and I've heard you talk about it so many times that it's like, you just didn't say no and just went with it. And that was that. And
and I was almost blacked out drunk.
Yeah.
And so there's very, very, very little memory.
For your
true. And
why did we need to get blacked out drunk? One, it was part of the culture and the friends that you had and I had around me. It's college, but it's also like, man, I didn't realize I loved numbing the trauma.
Or just anxiety around people, like social anxieties and like I got a lot better. I'm a way better game when I'm, really buzzed. Like I can talk to women easier if I'm really buzzed. And which is, I don't know, better. You're a lot more free to take risks. That's for sure. I don't think it's better communication.
Yeah. And it is part of that culture and that age.
But yeah, I didn't say no. I didn't know how to say no, man, for a lot. And that there's a lot of trauma in that I know is connected to what we're talking about today. But to me, there's so many experiences in my life that I've been working through with therapy and what have you, that some of those experiences where I didn't say no and said yes led me to find more of my sexual identity. One of those experiences was ending up getting a woman pregnant and having no ability or no choice in the matter. And then when the kid was 2, finding out the kid was alive.
Yeah. And then not even meeting him until he was 3.
And now he's 12.
Now he's 12.
Going on 13. And so, but some of those times where I couldn't say no led me to have experiences that I probably wouldn't have had if I could say no.
Yeah.
And that's not a good thing. But every opportunity, we can live in regret. I think regret's important so we can fucking learn from things. And then we can really make the best out of our choices too, of our past. When we want to go back to our past and deal with shit, I like to really spin it and manipulate it for me in a way where I'm honest, but I'm using it as a way to grow and find more of my identity. And so that experience where I didn't have choice and ended up with a kid scarred me, very damaging, extremely scary, very, 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 very scary. And then there was other experiences where I hooked up with a man for the first time. And so scary in a completely different way. But the freedom and the growth I had from that first experience, going through the guilt and feeling so alone and trapped, was magnificent. That growth. And I still didn't know my bisexuality. I didn't know my, fluidity of this, like, I'm all over the place at times, until still way later in life. But those are the experiences where, because of my ability to want to, like, coming out of the church and being like, Nathan, like, one of the things I did was like, Nathan doesn't say no to experience, because he was forced to say no his whole life. So I said yes a lot, and it was like,
that's definitely
shouldn't have said yes.
That's definitely how you took it and how you reacted. Is everything I said no to, I have to say yes to now.
Yeah, it's like, how else am I supposed to learn?
Yeah.
And Dad would say, some people learn by, just listening, not having to experience it themselves. And I was like,
that's not me.
Not me, buddy. And so now in my life, I'm learning how to learn by listening, baby. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, it's because we have agency now.
And I don't drink. It's been 2 years, so it's like 2 years
that helps
in January.
A lot. That helps a lot with control.
Because all of these stories of the past, alcohol was involved with, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
All of them.
Totally. I mean, alcohol is a very intense drug that can really ruin lives.
Like you said,
it
suppresses all of the bad shit.
And if you're thinking of the bad shit as, I'm anxious to talk to these girls, and so I need to black out before I can have sex with them,
you're missing so much.
Yeah.
But so dangerous.
I also don't want to talk bad about being young and partying and having fun. There's a lot of experience there that taught me a lot too.
I just wish, how many times did you hear this growing up? All right, I wish I knew what I knew now when I was your age. I do wish I knew what I knew now at 17.
Yeah.
I really do.
And I think the big point that I keep trying to make is we could have. And I'm not trying to say like I want to change our past. I don't accept my life. No, I accept who I am, and I love who I am, and I love who you are, and it's the reason why we're powerful in what we're doing. But when I look at the people around me who weren't raised the way we were, they don't struggle with guilt after sex. Why would they?
So then, like,
even talking to them about it, they're like,
let me flip the question.
Understand.
Not to interrupt, but let's just flip it, because I know we have so many questions we could read, but I think this is a great way to finish this conversation, because I had such a different experience. And I think what you were trying to get at, I know I can overtalk and overexpress things, but basically what you just asked me at the end of what I was saying was, do you still struggle with guilt after having sex or with sex? And it's literally, that question is like the opposite for me. I feel guilty if I'm not having sex with my partner, literally. Like, I feel there's something wrong if her and I go too long, and she agrees.
Yeah.
So I've met somebody that is on my level sexually, right? But even before that, I never really did feel guilty, and once I got over the hump of that youthful 17 and 18, 19 or 18 years old. So the question to you, my friend, do you still deal with sexual guilt?
No, I do not.
Okay. And that's it, folks. No, I'm just kidding.
But that's a very recent thing. I didn't stop dealing with that. Very recent. Until we started this podcast. This podcast really opened up that I was guilty because of my upbringing, not because I was doing something wrong. And I couldn't even consciously understand the guilt. I mean, and being raised the way I was, it's like, that's the only thing I can think of is I'm guilty because I'm not supposed to be doing these things. And most of my 20s was guilt that I would just suppress. And so I've chose to be a sexual being. I've chose not to follow the religion I was raised in. And this is what it comes with. It comes with guilt, because how else do you get over it? And that's the way I was living until we sat here week after week talking about it, hearing your trauma, hearing my trauma, and really me learning that I am guilty because of my trauma, not because I'm guilty, not because I'm doing anything wrong. And as simple as that is, man, doing it on this cast, talking about it on this cast, allowed me to just really accept that I am my own person. I have agency and I love who I am. And like actually accepting that and moving forward has now led me to, I am not guilty after sex.
So it's recent.
Yeah.
And so that's, well, one, how freaking beautiful is that?
Yeah.
Because cool. I have been growing a lot because of our conversations. We talk about it almost every cast.
Yeah.
But I know that you and I are on wildly different, however this can be said, like we're on wildly different sides of the spectrum in terms of time and our personalities and characters. And so we healed differently, and we've struggled from different things and hurt from different things. And rise above things differently and whatever, and approach life differently. And so are you like I guess some of these questions are so vulnerable, but like in your relationship now, do you find yourself struggling with being sexual with your partner? Even though you're not like, if not having sexual guilt's a recent thing, that's been since you've been with your partner now and fiance?
Well, it would present itself a lot more as, I need to have sex then. I need to have sex then. And like the guilt kind of fueled that for me. And I didn't understand my drive for sex because it was like any other boy. And you are, like I said, you're a horny mice. It's like, I think that presented itself a lot more in my 20s, that's what I was supposed to be, when really I was addicted to like this feeling of pain and anxiety and guilt. And it made me feel alive. And then the second you take that away, you're like, let's talk about our sexual relationship a little deeper. You know, you start to have these conversations that it's like,
you can finally grow and work on it.
Exactly. You can work on it. And so that leads to different relationship issues. And I'm not saying I have a perfect relationship, but the communication has gotten a lot easier when it's like, hey, I'm starting to realize that the last, like, because the person I'm with, I was with through a lot of this sexual trauma. And I don't want to say sexual trauma, but just not understanding that I was traumatized. Sure. And now engaged to the same person, we have kind of grown together, and I've been able to communicate, and we've been able to pinpoint different aspects of our sexual relationship that were directly like, I'm guilty because of this. I'm guilty because of that. I reacted this way because I wasn't understanding this. And now it's just a more open communication. Not that there's not problems. Every relationship has problems, but it's just, I think realizing that my religious trauma affected me in certain ways and being able to pinpoint it on this podcast, that one in particular, I have noticed where it's like, oh no, like the door opened and I was okay to be a sexual being after I admitted that I have trauma from it. It was weird because, man, like religious trauma is a new thing. We've talked about it on this podcast quite a bit. It's very new age therapy and trauma, and recognizing it and then being someone who suffers from it, just putting a name to certain things lets you overcome it. And that one in particular, putting a name to the fact that I was sexually repressed. And there's a lot of people that I was around that weren't raised the way we were and didn't have such a fear of sex and a fear of love. I like, as much as I wanted love and sex, I feared it so much because it was so bad. It was so bad. It was taught to me as just the worst thing to do because they just don't want you to have sex. They just teach it to you in this negative way. And it took me this long, man, fucking 30 years to get to a point where I'm like, I'm a human and I have sex. Okay. And it's like, whoa, it took that long. It took me a really long time to be okay with it. And really happy I'm not 40 and that.
How, the 40-year-old virgin.
Yeah.
Makes a lot more sense now, don't it?
Totally, yeah.
Still, that doesn't make sense to me. Sorry, that doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't for anybody. I just don't get it. Like even with all that trauma, it's like you're gonna get it, right? You're gonna figure this out.
You're gonna figure it out soon.
You're gonna try it out at least once, right?
Give it a go.
Just put it in.
You put it in there.
What'd you think? Would you say then, because we are different in this way, would you say that you are growing in a healthy way finally in your sexual personal life for yourself?
Finally, yeah.
Is that showing positively into your relationship?
It is. Oh, man. Blasted my eardrums there.
That's a really good note to end on.
Yeah.
That if you're watching this and you think that you're looking at two boys, you're wrong. We don't know what we are. No, I'm just kidding. That it don't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what, like how, or I'm sorry, it doesn't matter why, right? Ultimately, it's how can I figure myself out?
Mm-hmm.
And we are both figuring ourselves out in very different ways and helping one another as brothers and as just human beings. Thank the gods in our differences. And we're very different in this way. But we both went through very similar sexual traumas in terms of the church and repression. And it's fascinating to me how different we turned out sexually. And now that you're here guilt-free, sex living rent free up in Zach's head, as the Gen Zers would say it. That it sounds like you're on like they're in this like new growing stage of your life sexually. And what happened to me, baby? Look, I'm just kidding.
Okay. I was like, no,
I was about to make a joke, but like, I think that our sexual, this is like that question, right? Because we're talking about relationships. And for me, like so much of my sexual identity, as I've become more and more guilt-free in my relationship and all of these things, and my, like things have started to grow and change in ways for the both of us that I never could have imagined. And I feel like I'm constantly getting closer and closer to the source that's just the truth of who I am, free to be it.
Yeah.
And my partner is a supportive person when I'm attracted to these things in the real world, because there's like 8 billion people and she's attracted to these opposite sexes or whatever. And we were able to have conversations that are so human that ultimately at times can bring up insecurities. We address them and we feel at peace and free to be with each other, sexual beings trying to figure this out, who we are. And I think we're figuring it out a lot. And it sounds like, after 30 years, you've made it to like figuring that. You get to really figure that out by just being alive.
Totally.
And like with your partner, learning how to be at peace with the process of having healthy and productive and spiritual and mental sex.
Yeah.
Right? Like all of what it means to be with a partner, a sexual partner, and to be a sexual person. So that's great.
Thanks, man. No, it feels good. It feels good. And that's one of the few things that this podcast has healed. Or actually, one of the many things this podcast has healed. But that's one that's like blatantly like, no, that opened like a weird door for me.
Yeah.
Where I just could accept myself.
And we've talked so blatantly on this cast. Like if you've made it this far, thank you. You can go back and like last summer, or no, I'm sorry, this year, it was like April, May or whatever. I shared a lot about my sexual identity growth after that retreat I had and experiences me and my fiance Megan have shared together. And so, yeah, this has been a good conversation. It's funny because in my head, this whole time we've been talking, I'm thinking like, what haven't I said in the past? And this whole conversation has been very different.
It has been very different. Well, I mean, we've never actually gone into, I don't think we've talked about sexual repression.
There's just so much more we can talk about. And it's scary because it's like, oh man, this isn't like, it's hard to talk about because I just get
already,
lost.
Dude, 100%. Already, like just the first 40 minutes of this podcast, I'm like, dude, we just talked about our sex lives. That's all we really did. And it's like, we could have gotten way more into the church. And it's like, it's really hard not to use examples and talk about, our relationship life and our growing up. And the poor choices we made, which led to better choices, which led to learning, because it's like, this is all part of the trauma. And if I had more agency at 17 and felt more comfortable in the family and more comfortable in my community, I don't think I would have made A through D to learn F, And I think that's kind of what I'm learning, which is kind of leading me to another point I wanted to make. I learned this Gen Z phrase that is just fucking beautiful, man.
Let's end on. Let's go to the game cam after this.
And Gen Z, they just we did their Gen Z slang for a really long time. They just have such good slang, but there's this new one, and I don't remember if we did this one. If we did, I didn't process it the same way. But I've been very much trying to stop worrying about the future, stop worrying about the past. You are who you are now. The present's the only thing that matters. Really, like those last years, been really focusing on that. Even if you're in pain, even if life's not the way you want it to be, this is what it's supposed to be. And the Gen Z quote is, it's for the plot. And so no matter what happens in your life, it's for the plot. And so you're going to go try something new and it doesn't work out. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work out, man. That's for your plot. And it just like hit me in a weird way. It's like right now I'm about to start a biochem degree I never thought I'd ever do. And if I fail, oh no, all the student loans I'm going to build, doesn't matter, dude. It's for your plot. You'll figure it out later. It's for your plot. And it's like,
I see what you're saying.
I didn't figure out I was sexually repressed until I was 30. Yep. It was for your plot.
Yeah.
Now you can talk about it on a podcast and be open about it.
Yeah. This is your story.
It's your story.
Like we said last week, and we've said so many times, like the Gen Z way, like this is your plot. And like another way is, this life is happening for you.
Yeah.
It's a gift.
Yeah.
So use it, learn it.
Yeah.
Cherish it, have gratitude, be thankful, and recognize every day, every second, every millisecond that there are 8 plus billion other people's plots. That this is a gift. It's a gift for us all. And you're just another version of everyone else, and I'm just another you. And so the beauty of healing and being able to learn your own sexual identity without guilt and shame, I believe, is getting closer to the source that we are all one. That we're all in this together, that we're all just human beings. And we're animals. Everything on this planet is just another heartbeat.
Yeah.
The beautiful heartbeats.
Some don't even have heartbeats, baby.
And that's a process for a lot of us, especially with the insane capitalistic sexual culture we live in and how everything we're talking about, it's capitalized on so perfectly for us to be obsessing over it, buying it, putting money into it, seeing it everywhere we go. Yeah. We're just talking about this from two 30-year-old, humans coming out of the Christian evangelical church and how we're trying to figure out more, our sexual differences and how that's looked. And, yeah. Well, we've made it to this point again, Zachary. Great conversation, really intense. No, it was, we knew talking about sex is intense. And there's nothing better that I want to do after talking about sexual repression from religious trauma than play on the Game Cam. The Game Cam. Here on the Mortal Kombat Podcast, we believe in connecting with your inner child, and part of that inner child is playing Mario Kart 64 together after these long conversations. Why? Because after the church of our youth, we would come home and we'd all play Mario Kart together.
Or I would watch you play Zelda.
Right.
But it was that. Zelda or Mario Kart together.
Right. And this is the 6.0, which means we've played all 4 battle matches or battle maps
6 times.
6 times. This is the 6th time going through all of them again. We did the big donut the last time.
Yeah, but you won.
And I won. And I've been winning more the last few casts.
No. You won the last cast. Prior to that, I won the last 4 casts. So.
I thought I won the one before that too. No.
Wait.
That's okay.
You did.
Yeah.
You did.
I
You
won the last 2. Don't you even... Because that skyscraper one was crazy.
That was crazy. But the last time we played Block Fort, which we're going to play tonight, we had like a 15, 17 minute game.
I know. And the last 2 game cams have been quick.
Yeah. So.
All right. So I'm DK. You're going to be Princess? Peach?
I'm never Peach.
Be it.
I don't want to be Peach.
I'll
be Yoshi.
All right. I'm DK. Block Fort 6.0.
Right, boys. And girls. And the ace and thems.
And all of thems.
All of them.
3, 2, 1. Let's go. Come on, you gonna follow me? Yeah, you want a box? Yeah, where are you going? Watch me get it rich. Okay, that's not at all.
You have fun with that ghost. Doesn't do you no good.
I do not want a ghost.
Doesn't do you no good.
Already got things I don't want. Best out of 3 here on the Mortal Kombat Podcast. Oh! Where are you going?
Of course you got 2 stars.
Oh! You just went around that corner so sneaky.
I did. I was very sneaky. You gonna try to get me?
Yep.
Okay. You can try all you want, mister.
Wow, I'm getting some lame drops right now. He tried to shoot that red shell, but I had one of those explosive boxes on my booty.
I thought I was going to be able to get around you somehow.
All right, green shell. You had the red shell. This is going to be another long game cam, man.
It always is. It's this level, dude.
And it's not a problem. Like, it's just...
No, it is a problem.
It's a lot of editing.
On my part, not on your part. Actually, you do the... Yeah, never mind.
Okay. We gotta start taking some bigger risks here, or else we're never gonna get past this.
It's this level. This level is the longest level. It also is my favorite level. So.
Come on, man. I don't want to trail you. Yeah, that's right. Turn around. Oh!
Oh, you like that?
Oh! Shoot. Not Oh, snap. Oh, no.
I hit myself with a green shell.
Yes, you did.
Dude,
I needed that too.
I was really hoping I did.
I really needed that. Needed that. Here we go. I'm going to come up behind you right now. You're going to just... Oh,
I almost just hit.
red shell to red shell. Let's play. You're up top. You could hit me right now if you wanted. Bummer. Dude. Okay, I fail.
It's okay. I don't care. I'm just gonna smash. You're just about to get smashed.
You're just coming for me. What? Yes.
What is that, dude?
Yeah.
Oh! Yeah, you deserve that.
Oh,
you deserve
green shells. Oh!
Yes, dude, you deserve all of that. That was bull. Yes.
I was trying to reverse from the green shells. I felt like Fast and Furious.
We both had 3 shells. We hit each other. Normally that takes both balloons. You hit me, spun me out. You didn't lose a balloon. That was some BS.
Dude, no, that was brilliant, but I can't believe the rogue green shells got me. Oh!
Yeah, you would have got me too.
Why did you go right? I went left, righty, tighties, lefties. I'm gonna throw this one over them. Okay, that didn't work the way I wanted. Okay, did not get that box. This is not looking good. Oh, this is really not good. Oh,
I didn't even get to you. But I had you waste that star, baby.
Oh, snap. Oh, snap. Oh, snap. Oh, snap. Oh, snap. Oh, snap.
Oh, my goodness. Well played.
Oh, super well played. No.
Oh, yes. Man, I tried to do some spin move there. You're not going to be able to get it.
Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy.
You did that at the, on a star level or whatever it is. Oh my goodness, you were still here. I thought you left.
Oh, I just hit my own box.
Nice.
Oh, I just saw that happen.
Oh, double hitter.
Oh, this is bad. This is really bad.
Definitely not good.
Okay. I got 1 balloon left. Best out of 3. That just means if Zach takes this, he gets it.
I win, baby. Right now, I'm in a very good position. Nate has 1 balloon. I have 3. I won the last round, so all I gotta do is just, like, I could suicide mission and just, that's what we're gonna do. Oh, you're just so lucky sometimes. You're gonna try to 6 shoot me, huh?
Yeah.
Unload.
3 balloons. 6 shells. The future. Come on. Are you just gonna chase me? You wanna keep chasing me, bro? Dude, no.
Yes, dude, yes.
So I lost 2 balloons this game by going in reverse because there was nothing else I could do.
That was a really funny way to lose too.
It just feels so like powerful. Like,
you just watch me with the star, like, oh no.
I said, I'm not gonna lie, that was a hard game for me.
That was. You were stuck.
I made some dumb decisions.
Last game, man, you played like
I think it's this map.
I do win this map quite a bit.
This map is stressful for me.
You know what? And you're stronger in the big donut too.
Really good at the big donut.
The only one that's an even match where it's like one of us is gonna take a skyscraper. Yeah. And then also, I do think you have, just from our childhood, because you were always good at, what's the one after this? Double Decker?
Double Decker, yeah.
You always beat me on that one. And so there's something in the back of my head that when we get into it, it's like, I know if I focus, I'll win, but I just somehow mess something up. But Skyscraper is always like a good one to.
Good game.
That's a good one, man. That was a fun one.
Echo. Garage on. Okay. Looking at the podcast central clock right now, we are at 96 minutes.
Yep.
Not bad.
Not bad.
We don't go that long anymore.
Yeah.
And we're pushing it this time.
We are.
And I'm not going to edit it.
You normally don't. You let the rawness be, which is good, dude. I love raw podcasts.
No, I was editing them like crazy. I just don't take anything out.
Exactly. And I think that some podcasts probably do.
I mean, I take stuff out if we like the in-between shit, or if we I'm taking certain things out.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like there's some of these podcasts that are like 4 hours long, dude. They're not taking anything out. They're just talking.
No, for sure.
And so that's part of our I'm just like, and there's nothing to take out. Our conversations are like literally when I re-listen to them, it's just like, I don't know, that made sense.
Yeah.
We're making connections here.
Yeah.
We're not like perfect at this.
Yeah. Yet. Perfection is around the corner, though.
Well, that's it, folks.
That's all we got for you.
We've been doing our Easter eggs at the end of each episode. Does It Heal? Our new segment where we go to different businesses and try to figure out if their modalities of healing work for us. Is coming out soon.
Yeah, and it's very fun.
Very first one.
Fun. We did tease a little bit on our Instagram. You're one of the good ones, if you saw that.
Yeah, you're one of the good ones.
One of the good ones.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Love you, Zachary.
Love you, dude.
Been great talking about sexual repression with you.
Yeah, it's been really good.
See you, everybody, next weekend.
See you.
Bye.